a long time I've wanted to do a documentary about my disability, which is called hemiplegia. Hemiplegia is similar to a stroke, which occurs normally before birth, but sometimes it can occur later in life. Yeah, for me it was quite an unexplained thing that happened in my brain as a 20-week fetus in my mum's womb, which meant that I had a bleed on my left side of my brain, and this has meant that I am paralysed on the right side of my body, and this has affected how I express myself and how I say things, and from a learning point of view it's been incredibly difficult. This is a lifelong condition, but it doesn't get worse over time, and it's not inherited at all. I have completely accepted the condition. I do get quite frustrated and angry at times when I can't do something, like tying my shoelaces, and that's incredibly irritating that I can't do that by myself. But I've learnt to ask people, and like I don't find it embarrassing anymore. Yeah, it's not something. It's not a weakness to ask that. And yeah, I mean, I do sometimes see that I limp, and my hand doesn't move in the right way that my left does, and that kind of puts me down sometimes. But I've just kind of thought it's okay. I just have to get on with it, you know. And I've had a lot of physiotherapy to help me, and I've had 2 big operations that have been really good, so I can walk in a better way, and my hand, well, my wrist, I've had an operation on my wrist that's helped me, you know, hold things in a better way. And yeah, it's been since 2012 when I had the operation for my hand. It's been, you know, everything's been a lot better. Yeah, it's been life-changing for me with that operation, and it's been great. So in the last 2 years my life has changed quite dramatically, as I've started a course which is a higher national diploma in media production, as I've made so many friends on this course, and it's just been absolutely amazing. Well, before I was very shy and I didn't talk to many people, and I had social anxiety, and it was quite a bad time for me, but joining this course has made me come out of my shell quite a lot, and I've made lifelong friends, I think, and they are all so amazing. They really are. Yeah, and the course Higher National Diploma is amazing as well, because I want to be a film editor, and through this course I'm going to hopefully become a film editor. Hopefully in a few years' time. I've met people who are interested in media, and I can talk to them about things, and yeah, my friends now are totally amazing. I love them so much. I am right at the end of this course, and I'm very nervous about going into work, as I've never had a proper job before. I've only worked in charity shops, and I think this will be quite a big step for me. But yeah, I'm gonna just go for it. And yeah, as I said, like, video editing is like my absolute passion, and I really want to get into it. So in this documentary I'm going to show you what it was like as a hemiplegic, how it affected me as a baby, a child, a teenager, and now as a 20-year-old. I'm going to interview my family and my friends, and how they've seen me as a hemiplegic. Show you how my leg and my wrist were affected before the operation, how it is now, and how the operation's corrected my wrist and my leg, and how I can walk properly now, and how I can hold things better, and how it's improved my life quite a lot. I'll also talk about a charity that is solely based on helping hemiplegics, which is called HemiHelp, and how they help hemiplegics with activities and support. My objective for this documentary is to educate the general public about hemiplegia and show young children with hemiplegia what they can look forward to and what they can achieve in the future. Here is a video that HemiHelp made to help people understand what hemiplegia is.
What's hemiplegia? Hemiplegia is a lifelong condition which affects one side of the brain in a similar way to a stroke. It's caused by injury to the brain. It may happen during pregnancy, birth, or early childhood, but it can also be acquired later in life. How many people have hemiplegia? 1 in 1,000 children born in the UK. It's not uncommon. What are the effects of hemiplegia? The effects of hemiplegia can be physical and non-physical. It usually affects movement on one side of the body. Someone might say they have right or left hemiplegia, but you can't always tell someone has hemiplegia. It affects everyone differently, and it's not just about physical effects. Many people with hemiplegia have additional conditions and less obvious effects. Hemiplegia can affect the body, learning, emotion, and more. Charlie has epilepsy as well as hemiplegia. He goes to a mainstream school where he sometimes finds it difficult to understand what the teacher is saying. His hemiplegia makes it harder for him to process information and remember other things at the same time. What can help hemiplegia? Having hemiplegia can be difficult or frustrating at times, especially when others can't see its complex effects. But its effects can be lessened with the right therapy and support. Siobhan has special equipment that helps her in the classroom, and her splint helps her walk and keep balance. Does hemiplegia get worse? Hemiplegia is a lifelong condition. It doesn't get worse over time. With guidance and encouragement, most transition into adult work and independent living. After leaving school, Jamal wondered how he'd manage with his speech impairment and visual issues in the job. But his mentor, Francesca, an adult with hemiplegia, offered advice on finding the right work experience. With her support, Jamal made an action plan and feels more confident about moving into adult life. HemiHelp is a UK charity providing support and information to people with hemiplegia, their families, and the professionals who support them. For additional information and support, visit HemiHelp's website at hemihelp.org or call us on 0845 120 3713.
I talked to my oldest friend, Selena, about what it was like growing up with me.
The earliest memory was when I got moved to your class, and I had really bad eyesight, but I didn't get it checked yet. So in our science class, I was sitting next to you. I was sort of copying off your work, and I was pretty shy, so I wrote you a note to ask if we could be friends and eat lunch together. And then afterwards I found out you do Kumon too, so it was something I can rant to you about because I hated it so much. But yeah, I just know there was like teachers following you around, but I just didn't think much of it. I just thought maybe you were not as good at learning or whatever. But yeah, I didn't know about it until like, was it in year 8 or year 9 we were doing drama, and then I pushed you, and then one of our other classmates got really angry with me because of it and told me you were disabled. I freaked out. At the beginning, like, I didn't speak English that well, so I didn't know what it was anyway. And even now, you're the only person I know with the disability, so... Well, you were shy, but then so was I. And I guess that was more of the reason why you were bullied at times. And also the fact that you had TA following you around, so people might have thought that you were getting special treatment. So yeah, apart from that, no, not really. It's a disability that sort of paralyzed part of your body, like with Kat, it's sort of the whole of her right side. So sometimes she cannot hold things or cut up her own food. But apart from that, she's just a complete normal person and don't look any different to you and me. I think with different disabilities, sort of depends on what it is. I mean, if it's more something physical, then obviously they won't be able to do many stuff, and they know about their disability the best, but it shouldn't really change much because that's just who they are, really. And yeah, if anything, the thing that I think disabled people hate the most is how other people treat them, because some people do treat them differently just because they're different. Either they treat them like better in a way, like trying to do everything for them, or worse because they think like they're being, well, I don't know, like being weird or special or in some way, but humans are all the same in the end.
When I was diagnosed at 8 months with hemiplegia, I began to get physiotherapy and some occupational therapy. A physio came to my house and showed my mum what sort of activities and games I should play to make me more aware of my right side, which we had neglected until then. As I grew up, I learnt how to get myself dressed by always putting my right arm into a sleeve first, doing buttons with one hand and tying my hair into a ponytail by myself. In 2005, I had an operation on my affected leg at the Nuffield Orthopaedic Centre in Oxford to straighten it and improve the way I walk. My Achilles tendon was cut and lengthened. I was really nervous and frightened about the operation, but it went really well. I was in plaster for 6 weeks after the operation. It was just before I started secondary school. It was great to be able to walk to school with a more normal gait. I even do park runs now with my dad sometimes. I had a second operation in 2012 on my wrist, something called a tendon transfer. Before it, I could not open and close my right hand. After the operation, I had better control of my right hand and could hold things with it. I am so grateful to the National Health Service for making the medical care available to me. My disability is not always obvious to others. People who meet me for the first time will try and shake my right hand, which I cannot do properly. I'm not always able to articulate what I mean to say, what is in my head. My paralysis can make me very tired, which means I really need to rest sometimes, and can take longer to complete tasks. Hidden disability does not just affect hemiplegics, of course. I spoke to 2 friends with disabilities about this. I spoke to Faye Pragnall, who has fibromyalgia, and Ollie Marvin, who has dyslexia and dyspraxia, about their experiences.
Since Kat has told me about her disability, I have got, and I think she copes amazingly with it. But you know, you can't tell, but sort of when you look hard, you can see she does, you know, take her time, like putting on a coat and gloves sort of when we leave. Is that right? Yeah. But she does it with such grace that you would never, you know, someone looking from the outside would never notice. But I do appreciate that, you know, you're having to take longer to put it on because one side isn't working as it should. And I can imagine like what that must be like. It must in some cases it must take twice as long to do normal things. So yeah. But I don't want to be, as I said, I want to put a positive spin on this as well. I think life for people with disabilities, any kind of disability, whether it's visible or not, I think it would just improve so much if people just had more understanding and more compassion for people with, you know, who suffer with these conditions. Because I've noticed in some cases the emotional pain that I get is actually worse when even my family don't always understand. That's actually a lot worse than the pain of the emotional pain of having the condition itself. But also because you actually know what in my own experience, I know what it is that I can and can't do. I know what I need to get help. But you can't, it's harder for me to access because people don't see anything's wrong, people don't prioritise me, and then I suffer because of that. And I think everyone, whether they're disabled or not, there is something special about everyone. And I think if we could just if reasonable adjustments could just be put in place, then everyone could just if everyone, you know, it's about, I guess it's about leveling the playing field by putting adjustments in place. So for example, me and Kat, we get extensions for our essays, but there's other things that can be you know, that can be put in place as well, like getting, you know, I try to ask for like a height adjustable desk for my you know, for when I study at uni, because I can't be in the same position for too long before it's uncomfortable. So just things like that, support from other people, understanding from other people, and I think we can really flourish. And I think also having any kind of condition, like while it's a part of you and it affects your life and you have to, you know, it affects everything you do, it doesn't actually define you. It's who you are that defines you. But I think it can make you a stronger person. It can make you have more empathy for other people.
Someone like myself who does have a learning disability, I've been diagnosed with dyspraxia, which is hand-eye coordination issues, as well as dyslexia. I feel there are aspects of the course which is very much suited for us, especially something like practical, where we do get proper training, we do get it sort of adapted to us. The tutors know us and they know sort of what people can do and can't do. I think theory side, which is a lot of note taking, could be a bit more controlled. You sometimes, again going back to my sort of dyslexia, when I'm writing stuff I often find that it's a case of trying to form these words and stuff. It does get mixed up, and like dyspraxia, hand-eye coordination issues, if I'm on set, sometimes I can't handle everything, and obviously with something like your disability, there will always be things we're going to struggle with. Sometimes we can do them, sometimes we can't do them, but it's a case of having tutors and friends on the course who are able to adapt to how we are and sort of adapt to how we are and sort of like help us where we need it, and help us find our strengths, because not everyone's going to struggle at something. You're never going to be perfect, and it's all it's a lot of teamwork. You have to be quite tight, you have to be good friends, you have to be quite close.
So, what support is there for children born with hemiplegia and their parents? Well, there is a charity called HemiHelp, who provide information, support and guidance to people with hemiplegia and their families in the UK. They were founded in 1998 by the parents of children with hemiplegia. They have a quarterly publication with news and articles, and they organise meetups and activities around Britain. I went to several of these while growing up and met and befriended other children who also had hemiplegia. It was good to share my experiences with them. I went on a cooking course and also 1 or 2 workshops. I talked to my classmates on how I have changed over the last 2 years.
You've become a lot more confident, you've a lot more outgoing, you're a lot more hyperactive. You sort of definitely come out of your shell. You're not sort of as timid as you used to be.
Well, you've definitely changed a lot in the past couple of years, since the longest I've known you anyway, because you were one of the first people I spoke to when H&D started. I started hanging out with you quite a lot because you were really shy and you looked quite lonely to me as well, because it was, I think it was like sort of the first couple of days of the course where you were very shy, and I wanted to try and talk to you, but I'm pretty glad I did. But yeah, but you've certainly come out of your shell, and you've hanged around with a lot of people, and also have met many of our other good friends from previous courses like level 2 and level 3, and which is really nice. It's really nice that you're bit too comfortable around a lot of us, but it's not a problem. It's just some of the stuff you come out with, and and how hyperactive you come across. I think that's great that you have done that, and you've achieved being confident. Just because you have hemiplegia doesn't mean you can't be confident.
Well, initially, definitely level 3, in the first 2 years you were very quiet and didn't really talk to many people. But I'd say that in the HND you really opened up and started talking to people. You're certainly a lot louder than you used to be, and a lot more social. And I would say I probably didn't know you in level 3 really, but in HND now I know you properly.
I think you've come out of your shell a bit, and you're sort of more, you're not as quiet as you used to be.
I talked to my classmates about the struggles I may have on the course.
The only sort of challenges that you have to deal with, which are unfortunate, it's when you're carrying the heavy equipment that we have to use, pretty much every day of when we're studying media. Because like I said, nobody wants to carry a great big heavy camera around, because looking back on some of the stuff we've done in the past, it would be impossible for you to use the big camera, because the big cameras, we have to use them on our shoulders, and there's so many buttons that we have to press to get the exposure right, to get the iris set up, and white balancing, and that's the problem with this course. Sometimes it's not very good at catering for people who have who can't use their arm a great deal.
Obviously, being careful with how I phrase this, with your disability you obviously can't use one of your arms as well as someone else. So I mean, it's kind of a case of not so much like a setback as such, you're still very capable at doing things, and you've obviously adapted well to using your left hand more prominently.
Not really. I mean, sometimes taking the equipment, because it's quite heavy, you obviously can't do that very well. But other than that, no other struggles that are quite noticeable.
Well, I think the main problem would be setting up equipment and carrying cameras and things like that. It'd be harder to set things up, and lights and cameras and things like that. It'd mainly be using the equipment and moving it to places.
One thing about brain injuries like mine is that you sometimes get epilepsy. I had my first seizure when I was 9. Most hemiplegics don't get epilepsy if they get beyond 10 without a seizure. I spoke to Associate Professor Sarosh Arani, a neurologist at the University of Oxford, about what epilepsy is.
Epilepsy is a common condition, and it's defined as having more than 2 seizures in your lifetime. And a single seizure is an episode where the brain for some reason gets hyperexcitable, and when it gets hyperexcitable it manifests with usually jerking, but sometimes people can have other feelings, unusual feelings and sensations, like they don't quite know where they are, and sensations in their body which are slightly unusual. So a seizure is epilepsy is more than one seizure, and a seizure is one of those excitable brain events. Epilepsy is quite common in people with brain injuries, but not all get epilepsy. I don't know the exact numbers, but it would depend on how bad your injury is normally, and it depends on where in the brain it affects. So some bits of the brain are more prone to developing epilepsy, others are less prone. I think the main things to remember are that epilepsy is very treatable, but also it's often very frightening when you're in crowds and when you're with people to have a seizure. So I think it mustn't be underestimated how disturbing to you, how much it can affect your life. But at the same time, I think it's important for young people to remember that epilepsy is highly treatable if they take the medications in the right way and they do all the right things to protect themselves. And there's a good chance that most of your seizures are controlled, if not all, for life. Year on, year out, there are new medications that come through, and the medications either work to try and suppress seizures, but they either work to try and be better at suppressing seizures, or they tend to work to have a better side effect profile. So they're as good as the previous drug at suppressing seizures, but they have less side effects. So if you can have fewer side effects in that context, that will mean that people take it longer, they get on with the drug better, and then they have better long-term seizure prevention as well. So there's that angle of things, but then there are also a number of other angles, including some surgical options. So there are parts of the brain that can actually be resected, removed, and that can sometimes create seizure freedom. And then people are looking into a wide number of causes for seizures as well. So if you try and think of the current medications as plasters, they kind of plaster over the symptom that is a seizure. But in terms of treating the underlying cause, the surgery can treat the underlying cause, but a number of other rarer opportunities are arising to treat the underlying cause by working out what caused the seizure in the first place. So yes, things are definitely improving, but there's a lot to be done, of course, because still about 40% of people will not be seizure-free for their lifetime.
I am confident going into the world that I can achieve everything I want to. It's important to make other people aware of disabilities by educating them about disability and its effects. People with disabilities must engage with the world and make sure society recognises their needs and provides for them. Many people will experience some form of disability in their lives. Young people with disabilities should never give up. They will find that with perseverance they will enjoy a full and happy life.